Welcome to the DFMI Business Lab podcast, brought to you by the Durban FilmMart Institute, presented in partnership with DW Academy, supported by the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. DFMI Business Lab podcast draws inspiration from the 18-week online program which focuses on the business elements of filmmaking, aimed at equipping film producers with the skills to grow their careers. Our host today is Moreetsi Gabang, who is an alumni of the DFMI Business Lab.
Hi everyone, welcome to the DFMI Business Lab podcast series. My name is Moreetsi Gabang. I'm a writer-director all the way from Botswana. I'm an alumni of the DFMI Business Lab, also Talents Durban, and I'm the winner of the Nifty Africa and Nifty All-Stars hosted by the Durban FilmMart. And also I'm an alumni of the DFMI Jumpstart program. In this episode of the DFMI Business Lab podcast series, we'll be talking business management. I'm really excited to be joined today by the phenomenal Tina-Louise Smith, who is a South African film scholar, producer, and educator. She's currently a PhD candidate in film and television studies at the University of Cape Town, UCT, supported by the Mellon Turning the Tide Doctoral Research Fellowship at HUMA. Her doctoral research examines how television crime drama formulas from the global north are adapted for South African audiences. Her research interests include feminist film theory, representation of marginalized groups, post-colonial and post-apartheid screen studies, representation of space and place, and memory studies. Tina holds honors and master's degrees in film and television studies at UCT. She currently teaches film theory to undergraduates at UCT. But before returning to academia for her postgrad studies, Tina worked at Prime Media, contributed to various publications. She co-founded Free Ranging Films in 2006 and later founded Accidental Films and TV in 2010. Her television works include Mr. Table Tennis and Endanger. Tina has also played a significant role in capacity building within the African film industry. She was instrumental in introducing the business model canvas workshops to the Durban FilmMart in 2015 and continues to teach this tool through online platforms and various industry engagements. So without further ado, I'm really pleased to welcome Tina-Louise Smith. Hi, Tina.
Hello, Moreetsi. Am I saying your name correctly?
You're getting it perfectly well. Thank you.
Okay,
How are you
great.
doing?
I'm good. It's getting nice and warm in Cape Town today, but it's probably going to rain again soon.
Okay, so the weather's not so great, but hopefully this conversation will brighten up the day.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, like I was saying, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because you've as an alumni of the business lab back in 2021 to 2022 cohort, you took us through this incredible tool, the business model canvas, that I found incredibly just life-changing in terms of how I operate and how I do things within my personal and professional life. So I kind of wanted us to ensure that we basically just give that information out to more people and try and understand what it's all about. So I guess
That's really great to hear.
So I guess the first question I have really is, how did you first come about? Or rather, how did you first come across the business model canvas, and what inspired you to sort of to champion it and to start teaching it to others?
So when I was a filmmaker, and when you do funding applications, some of those applications want to know your business plan. And I don't know if you remember, because this is the story I tell everyone in the workshops. I never knew how to do a business plan. So I would go online, I would search business plan, I would find an example from Moreetsi. I'd take your business plan, put it in a Word document, and then change key details to make it my own business plan. So that was the way I did a business plan. And then I was going to HotDocs in Toronto with the Documentary Filmmakers Association in 2012. And I saw that there was a workshop session, a 4-hour session called the Business Model Canvas. And I signed up for it. I went to the workshop, and just like you said a few minutes ago, it was mind-blowing. It was revolutionary. And after those 4 hours, I could do a business plan. And I was like, why has no one ever shown this to me before? And I thought, if I can make a business plan, then anyone else can do a business plan. They just need to learn what I learned in the past 4 hours. And that's how I came across the business model canvas, through that experience of going to the HotDocs Film Festival.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And then so from the process of going through this 4 hour session to understand it, to eventually choosing to introduce it to sort of the South African space, how did that go about? Like, did you first reach out? Like, what's the history behind that?
Well, we were funded to attend the HotDocs Festival by the National Film and Video Foundation in South Africa. And Nelwe Kanyele, she was Kanyele then, I think, she was with us at the festival. And after the 4 hour workshop, I went to her and I said, Nelwe, this is amazing. I know how to do a business plan, and we have to make sure that every filmmaker in South Africa knows how to do a business plan. So we've got to teach them this. Do you think we can bring it to South Africa? And she said, yes. So I spoke to the people who ran the workshop at HotDocs, got their contact details, and told them that I was going to draft a proposal to bring the canvas to South Africa and to have it taught there. And so I got in touch with Anna Serrano from the Canadian Film Centre Media Lab, who had run the workshop in Toronto. And she put me in touch with Orla Garriques, who later became the co-director of the program at the Durban FilmMart. So the two of us together, we worked on the curriculum and the design for the workshops that we finally introduced at the Durban FilmMart in 2015. So it took 3 years to put the proposal together, to get a team together, and to put out a call for participants at the workshop. So we did 2 days. So I think 2 days, or however many days the FilmMart ran for. So first we had trainers that we trained. So we trained them on 1 day. And then on the second day, we had participants like yourself who had signed up to attend the workshops. And the trainers that we were training, they were part of the team of teaching producers how to use the canvas. So we used the Durban FilmMart like as a training ground for people who were learning how to use the canvas at the same time. And we had 2 different groups of producers and filmmakers on 2 different days that the trainers taught. So that was how it first came to South Africa. And for that, we were funded by the Documentary Filmmakers Association, the National Film and Video Foundation, the Durban FilmMart, and the Gauteng Film Commission. And then obviously we also partnered with the Canadian Film Centre Media Lab. And Orla Garriques, her company, is also listed as a partner. So it was like there were lots of people involved and lots of organizations involved. And now it's here on the continent. And people are learning how to use it and learning about this. Like, it's really dynamic and it's powerful. So I'm glad people are learning to use it. And I've also said to people in the workshops that I'm not a business person. So I can't tell them about business, but I can tell them about the business model canvas.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, because I mean, like you said, it started off, had this incredible journey in South Africa, and now here I am in Botswana having learned it as well. And it shifted my perspective as well, coming as a creative, moving into the business space. So that was really, really amazing.
Okay.
So in terms of, for people who are unfamiliar with it, what exactly is the business model canvas and how does it work?
What exactly is it? So it's a visual tool to help creative people plan for their business or plan for a specific project. And it shows you all the key categories that you need to consider when you think about a business model for your project or for your business. Does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think I remember the first time round in the sessions that we had, as we were breaking it down, I was a little confused until we actually saw it visually, and I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. You know, it's made up of these different segments. So I don't know if we can possibly work through those segments now. You know, like, could you walk us through the different segments that make up the business model canvas?
Okay. I should also say, because the Canadian Film Centre Media Lab, they always stress this, that the business model canvas was designed by someone called Alexander Osterwalder in 2008. And he designed this while he was doing his PhD. So it came out of his financial studies or business studies for his PhD. And then the Canadian Film Centre, they adapted it for filmmakers to enable filmmakers to be able to use the canvas for projects specifically, but then also for their production companies. And as you know, I've said in the workshops, like companies like Microsoft have used the business model canvas and Standard Bank. So it's a tool for filmmakers, but you know, the biggest corporates in the world also use the tool. So now you want me to take you through
So if we could go through the canvas, actually, you know, just the different segments that make it up.
Okay, so when we teach the canvas, we encourage participants to begin with the value proposition, because the value proposition is the thing that you're selling. It's why you are there, and it's also why your customers are going to come to you. So you've got to know what your value proposition is. And before I encountered the business model canvas, I had no idea what a value proposition was. I mean, values are things that are personal, and they are things like respect and honor. So it was really difficult for me to work out and to understand what a value proposition was. But when I see it on the canvas and I think about it in terms of it's why I'm here and it's what I'm actually doing, and it's why customers are coming to my business. So you have to think about the specific value that you are creating for a specific customer or a specific product that you're offering them. Or what do you do and what makes your content unique? So when I look at the homework canvases that participants have to do before we do the workshops, often they say something like, I'm producing African stories, unseen African stories. But I think you've got to think deeper than that, like what makes your content unique, because almost every homework canvas I get says, I'm producing African stories or unique African stories. If they're unique, what makes them unique? So you've got to be specific, because when you talk to a potential financier and they've heard 5 other people before you say that they're producing unique African stories, you better tell them what is unique about your stories. And also, how is your story or your project or your company going to make an impact on the marketplace? So you've got to think about those things when you're thinking about your value propositions. And then your customer segments, that's the next category that we tell people to think about, because who is interested in your value proposition? And if you've listed like 4 value propositions, you may have 3 different customer segments for each value proposition. So your canvas has the potential to become really big, like a whole universe on its own. But so you've got to think about the groups of people or organizations that you aim to reach with your product. Or think about who do you help, depending on the kind of project you're working on or the kind of business that you have. And then also think about secondary markets that exist for your product.
And is
Next
there, sorry, just to jump on that point on the customer segments. So is there like a list of priorities in terms of this is our first, these are our first target market, so to speak, and then secondary and tertiary, like niche markets? Do you have to do that, or can it just be at first listing down all the customers?
Yeah, I think at first you can just list things, and then because also the canvas is an iterative tool, so you start with one iteration, and then in a week you come back and you do another iteration, and you realize that I said that my primary customers would be Africans. But then a week later, you come back and you go, no, actually, I think they're men in Botswana. And they live in a house that has a lounge with red curtains. So you've got to try and hone in on who the idea of your main customers. But it's iterative, so you can start out very broadly and you can get more specific as you think about it more and more.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay. And then your key partners would be people and organizations that you will work with to help you deliver your value propositions to your customers. And these people usually come from outside of your company, who are going to help you to produce your project or deliver on your value proposition. Then the next category is your key activities. So what do you have to do to make sure that you deliver on your value proposition? So if you are producing a unique African story, you're going to have to write that story. So that would be one of the key activities that you need to do. If you're producing a film, you're going to need to find the crew. You're going to need to location hunt. So those are the kinds of key activities. You're also going to need to find your crew. You're going to need to cast your actors, etc. And then your key, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just on key activities as well. So how important is it to be like as specific as possible? So let's take the example of a film production, for example. We're creating a film, and it's about a key activity would be finding the crew. Do you label each individual person to say, right, I'm gonna need a DOP, I'm gonna need a screenwriter, I'm gonna need a production designer? Like, do we go into that depth?
Again, it depends on where you are in your process, but I think also remember that, okay, I didn't mention this, so people won't remember, but the canvas it's an A4 page that you will fill in and then stick in your pocket for when you go to a full market. And when you see a financier that that you haven't sat with in one of those speed dating rounds maybe, or you're sitting with them in a speed dating round, because that goes very quickly. So you don't have time to tell them all the details, like I need a production manager, I need a production assistant, I need an editor, I need an offline editor, an online editor, an editor's assistant. You don't have the time to go through all of those people that you need. So you could just say, in that example, in that instance, you're going to say, I need the production team, the post-production team, whatever. So it's going to depend on where you are when you are going through your canvas, but also where you are when you are designing your canvas. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess you could even go as far as saying, if we're sticking with the film concept, the film example, could even break it up into its different stages, right? You have a canvas for pre-production, you've got a canvas for production, and then post, if you really want to go that deep into it. I think
Yes.
So,
And also you can only fit so much into a canvas. And that was the point I wanted to make with it being an A4 sheet. You want to be able to take out just one piece of paper that you can glance at while you're in the meeting or while you're talking to the potential financier. You don't want to have to turn it over and be all flustered. You want to be able to look at it and see the key thing that you're looking for, and not break eye contact with them for too long. And also, once you do the canvas like twice, you really have a good idea of what you need to talk about. So you will know off the top of your head without looking at your canvas that you've got to talk about value propositions, customer segments, key partners, all of those categories. So you will know off the top of your head what you have to cover. And if you're nervous, you just need to be able to glance down and see like key points. They need to stand out for you. So you don't want to write too much that you have to like squint and look at your document and go like, where's that bit that I need? So it's all got to be easily accessible for you.
fantastic. Yeah. And so the next segment.
Okay, so then the key resources. So these are the most important assets that you need to be able to deliver your product or your offering. So what do you need? So these aren't the things that you need to do, but the things that you need. So like laptops, your crew. So you will need your crew, and then a key activity is to find the best crew for the production. Customer relation. Yeah.
Just a quick question on key resources. So would say, let's say with the film, we're going to need sort of like we're gonna need to show it somewhere. Let's say, for example, we want to show it in theater. Is that a key? Would you put down as a key resource cinema, theater? That's what we're going to need, or does that go into a different segment?
No, well, that can go. Sometimes you can have one thing appearing in different categories. So like if the cinema is one of the resources that you need, from that resource, you're going to find that you're going to get key activities, which is deciding which cinemas you want to exhibit your film in. It's also going to appear in channels, which is how you want to deliver your product, which is a film, to your customers. So that's that's one of the ways you're going to deliver your product to your customers. And again, and in all of these categories, you want to keep it short, have a few bullet points that are easy to see. So yes, you can have one thing in many categories.
Yeah. And do these key resources always have to be something physical, or can we talk like intellectual, like copyrighted data, or like a
Yeah.
brand?
Yeah, no, they don't always have to be something physical. They can be your intellectual property, and the data, just like you say. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That's a good question. And then customer relationships. So that's the next category. What kinds of relationships do you have with your customers, and how are you going to maintain these relationships, or how do you interact with your customers? So you need to think about those things. So how will you engage the audience for your film? What are you going to do to bring them to the cinema to see your film? You're probably going to create a 1-minute trailer or 30-second trailer that you're going to broadcast in the cinema or screen in the cinema. What's the correct word for things in cinemas? You're going to play it in the cinema so that they can see it when they go and see one movie. They can see the trailer for your film. You're probably going to do interviews on the radio so that people can hear about the narrative of your film. So you're going to do things like that to draw customers to your film. And then also, how are you going to keep them as like audiences who maybe who maybe go, oh, I need to see the film by this director again because I saw their previous film and I really enjoyed it. I want to see this film. So maybe you could also like have events where you like, meet the cast events where they get to meet the people that they really enjoyed meeting in the film. They get to meet them in person. So those are ways that you can develop your relationship with your customers. And obviously, if you do the canvas, which you should, with other people, they will have other ideas for how you can develop your customer relationships. And then
I guess this goes quite hand in hand with the customer segment, right? So is it a case of taking the customer segment and then bringing it into customer relationships and then breaking that down in terms of this is the relationship we have with, a particular audience and, young males in Botswana are coming to watch this film. This is our relationship with them now. And then this is where we want to get it, which is we want them to go watch this film.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly. So for each category, you have to, like you're saying, with the customer relationship, if you're thinking of young men in Botswana, think about the kind of relationship you have with them now, and what you're going to do to retain them as your customers. But then you're probably also going to have young men in Zambia as your customers. And those young men in Zambia are different from the men in Botswana. So think about how these two relationships differ and what you're going to do for each customer segment. And remember, under customer segments, you're also going to end up with your primary, secondary, and tertiary customer segments. So you have to ask these questions for each customer segment. And it's the same with every category on the canvas. You have to think about each bullet point that you've entered and how each bullet point is impacted by the bullet points in every other category. So that's why the canvas, it's exponential, it's explosive, and it sounds overwhelming, but when you do it, I mean, you are just blown away by what it can do, and it becomes less overwhelming and simply powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when, like I said, I tried it for the first time, and at first it seems daunting, and then you start making the links between like everything affects everything else, and if you shift this, that shifts, and it sort of develops the layers of the business plan.
Yeah.
Before you even know it, it's like, wow, there's the blueprint. So it's really great.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Okay. And then the next category is the channels. So how do you deliver your film to the young men in Botswana? And how do you reach them? So how do you reach them is something that you thought about when you were thinking about the customer relationships also. And like I said before, you can have the same thing in different categories, so don't worry about that. And then how will you grow your audience also? So customer relationships and channels are very similar, but when you're doing your channels, you're mainly thinking about how you're going to get the product to your audience, but then also think about when you're doing that, if there's an opportunity to grow your audience. And like you said, the cinema is one way, maybe TV or streaming television, TikTok, WhatsApp. People use all different channels to get things to their customers. And so you can think about, I guess at the first level, it would be the cinema or streaming television. But then at another level, you want to think about who the distributors are, who you're going to work with to be able to do that. So maybe it's your national broadcaster, or it's someone like Netflix or Showmax. And I've seen in homework canvases, people often put the distributors under their customer segments. So they would have like audiences, like young men in Botswana, but then they would also have distributors because they do want their distributors to be enticed by their value proposition so that they can convince them to screen their films on Showmax or Netflix or Prime Video. Yeah.
And so how important is it to sort of as you're breaking down the channels, how important is it to sort of make sure that you integrate that into your customers' routines? Like as you're saying, with if people normally use Facebook, or if there's a cinema culture, like how important is it to ensure that you're thinking about what channels your consumers are using?
It's very important because you want them to see your product or your film. And so what is also important for people using the canvas to know is the iterative nature of the canvas. So you may not think of Facebook, for example, the first time you do a plan for your film project. But the next time you come back to it, you'll go, oh shit, I forgot about Facebook. And you can add Facebook as one of your channels. And yeah.
Just that you prioritize it, right? Like let's say, Facebook is number one, because here in Botswana there's a large, you can throw your trailer on Facebook and it can get large viewerships, and then sort of prioritize the rest of the channels.
Yes, exactly. And also, you can, if you think Facebook is your main channel to attract customers, you can do a canvas with only Facebook. So you can take all the other distribution channels, for example, off the canvas. You can get rid of your national broadcaster, Showmax, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and put Facebook down as a channel, and then work out like if the value propositions that you had originally still apply to your Facebook audience. So I guess maybe what you should do then is, if you have Facebook as your key channel, is first think about who those customer segments are going to be who use Facebook. So think about, is it still going to be the young men in Botswana and Zambia, or are they going to be maybe older audiences who use Facebook and are going to see your trailer? I'm not sure what the demographic for Facebook is in Botswana. But in South Africa, for example, it's more likely to be an older audience on Facebook that will see your trailer. So that's going to become my key customer segment for Facebook. And then I'll think about which value proposition are they going to be most interested in, those older audiences of Facebook. And I'll look through my value propositions and pick one, and maybe I'll order them in order of importance for my Facebook older audience. And then I'll think about who my key partners are going to be, who are going to help me connect with that older Facebook audience and bring them the specific value proposition. So you can also do that. You can extract one of those bullet points in your canvas and do a canvas around just that bullet point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm smiling because I'm just reminded about just how everything links up together, that, so it works really, really well.
Yeah. And even when you are doing a canvas for that older Facebook audience, you may find that a lot of the elements that you did in your initial canvas still come back into your Facebook canvas. And don't worry about that. It just means that, like you say, everything is connected.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And then the next category is the cost structure. So how much money do you need to deliver your value proposition? So it's basically your budget. What are the most important costs in your business model?
I see. Okay. So this is really where all the costs come in. So for example, if we look at customer relationships, and there's no need for us to put an actual cost in that segment that would go into cost structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, depending on where you are. So if you're doing a canvas for your post-production phase, you're probably not going to need to include cinematography in that cost structure. It just depends on where you are, which film market you're at. Yeah, so you need to think strategically like that also. So your first canvas, you probably don't even have your cost figured out. You don't know how much it's going to cost because you haven't done a comprehensive budget, but you know that you're going to have to cover pre-production and post-production, marketing and distribution. So you can list those phases even if you don't have the total cost yet.
And I guess it also just helps, this segment also helps really, like you're saying, prioritize and allow you to understand your type of value proposition, right? So we're dealing with something that's premium, for example, you sort of label those up there, or if it's something that has a bit more of a lower end mass market appeal to it, the costs, the segment will reflect that.
Yeah, yeah. And you'll develop that with the next iterations also.
And is it important to at this stage to know the exact costing, or are we talking estimates here to say perhaps this would be 100,000 Rand, for example?
I think the exact costing is necessary when you approach a financier. When you're doing the various drafts in your office, you're doing that towards meeting a financier or going to a full market where you think you're proposing your business plan, and the person might ask you, so how much, because you want money from them and they know that. So they may say, so how much is this going to cost me? And you need to be able to tell them. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right,
And then go ahead.
I was just saying, and then the next segment, the revenue streams.
So the revenue streams refer to the money that you're going to earn off of your product or your film. So it's not grant money, because you don't earn grant money. You're awarded grant money to help you make your film. So that comes before your film is completed. Revenue refers to what comes after your film is completed. So like licensing fees and merchandise, for example, you can like sell t-shirts or little toys related to your film, like Toy Story. You can sell, what's the cowboy's name? Anyway, you can sell the cowboy. You can sell him, people will buy him, and your business will make more money in that way off of your film. So you need to think beyond production and post-production. You need to think beyond that. So your film has a long life, and this project will live with you forever if you can continue to make money off of it.
Yeah. And so with this segment, is it just the money that we're focusing on, or do we expand it further to say how are people paying for this product? Like, do you have to factor in, let's say they're going to be paying cash, they're going to be paying through the FNB, like a bank app? Like, do you factor those things in there as well?
I mean, you don't have to, but I think if you want to, you can do a canvas for the different revenue streams that you're thinking about, and that will help you to plan the different platforms to get money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking about people have their different preferences of paying, so perhaps.
Yeah. I think that's a very good thought. But yeah, then you would need to do a canvas for your various revenue streams. Yeah.
Cool. Right. So, I mean, I think that's all the segments around the business model canvas.
Yes.
And as you can see, it's quite extensive. And it's really, like you're saying, it also is supposed to fit into like this A4 piece of paper, but it really does layer and develop one's business.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, I wrote it somewhere. Let's see. So Orla, she had what did she say? She said that the business model canvas shifts from telling your creative story to selling your business story. So that's, I mean, I think that's also key for, if you like me, you in film and television because you're a creative person, and then everyone wants you to do this business side that, I mean, I don't enjoy. But it is the shift from telling your creative story to selling your business story. And you've got to think about the business model canvas helps you to tell this business story also.
Yeah, I really love that as well, because I think that's the big shift that happens, like you're saying, with creatives is that we get caught up in our imaginations, but hey, we've got to sell it. And that's what this tool does so well.
Yeah.
So I think you've mentioned it before, but with the canvas, is there a specific order that we're supposed to fill out these segments, or can you sort of keep going around from customer service?
There isn't a specific order, but I'm not sure if you remember the video of the business model canvas, the business theater, and it talks about the stage, the front of house, and the back of house. And
Yes.
So your value proposition is the stage. It's the thing, it's the most important thing, because this is what people are going to see. So it's important that you know what that is. And that's why when you do the homework and when you do the exercises in the workshop, we encourage you to start with that, because you have to know what you're doing. And what you're making. But sometimes that does become clearer as you go through the canvas, and you can tweak your value proposition. So nothing is written in stone. Everything can change. And that's why I keep saying it's an iterative tool, because you can keep changing it. But so when we do the activities in the workshops, we start with the value proposition, and then we go to the customer segments, who is interested in your value proposition, and then we go to the key partners, so that's who is going to help you to deliver on your value proposition. So those are the three things that are going to, I guess, be the foundation for the rest of the canvas. Because in order to deliver on the value proposition, you need to know who you want to target, who's going to help you, and then how you're going to do this. And those are the other blocks that you need to fill in.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think it's something that we stressed as well in the beginning, is that, it's this visual tool to help us run, to help us figure out how to run a sustainable business. But, can it be applied to a more broad sense, like, for example, to your own personal life? Like, you want to kind of create a business plan for your personal life?
Yeah. So if you want to do your PhD, for example, like me, you can do a canvas to map all of that out. Who's going to be interested? What is your PhD, first of all, which would, be your research question, which is really hard to work out. But that would probably go under your value proposition. Who's going to be interested in your research? That would be your customer segments. And I guess people who would be interested in my research, for example, obviously film and television scholars, but I think that people working in television, because my PhD focuses on TV specifically, so people working in television would be interested in my findings. Maybe streaming broadcasters and streamers would be interested in my findings. My key partners would obviously be my supervisor, the university, maybe other academics who give me ideas, maybe journals who I publish with. My key activities would be doing the research, watching TV, and then writing, analyzing, and interpreting my findings. My key resources, my laptop, my car to get to university, the library, notebooks. I have many notebooks. So things like that. Let's see, my customer relationships, I mean, so I've developed relationships with some academics, so my customer segments, by meeting them at conferences. Yeah, and also with the academics in our departments, I've developed relationships with them. They may be customers for my research. Journals, how would I develop relationships with them? By writing to them and saying to them, sending them a proposal for an article I may want to write that comes out of my research. And then channels to reach academics would be through journals, at conferences, delivering papers about my research. People in the television industry, maybe I could reach them by doing a podcast with the Durban FilmMart, and also doing interviews with newspapers and radio interviews so that people get to hear the findings of my research. The costs would be my tuition and what it costs to live, because at UCT your studies are full-time, and lots of people do their full-time studies part-time, so they do work to be able to pay their bills. I haven't had full-time employment, so I've been funded by the university. I've got a fellowship and I've got an education grant, and I got a bursary from the NFEF. So I have funded my research like that. But so I would factor all of that into my cost structure, how much it costs me to live every month. And then my revenue, that's a hard one. I don't know how I'm going to make money. Oh, maybe I could turn my research into a book. Maybe a textbook, or maybe a book for people who work in television. I want to share my research and make it more accessible to television producers and not only to television scholars. So I could do a book maybe.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, we can all really tell that you've really had the experience using the canvas, because you just rattled that off in a couple of minutes, which is quite fantastic.
Yeah.
But on average, how long is this exercise designed to take? If one.
It depends on how much time you have. So I've done the canvas with 2 friends. I did it for the one friend, and I invited another friend along, so there were 3 of us. And I think we had 2 hours. So it is good to restrict yourself, otherwise it can go on for the rest of your life. So set yourself time restriction depending on what's available to everyone who's participating. And you will give the owner of the canvas, when you leave, they will have ideas to work with. And that's the important thing, that they get ideas for their film project or for their business or for their degree, whatever it is they're doing a canvas for. And try to get not too many people, but more than just yourself, to throw ideas at the canvas, so that you have ideas that come from outside of you, because we all think in a specific way and you want fresh ideas on your canvas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really want to stress that point, that how important is it to ensure that you're not working on the business model by yourself. You need those different perspectives, like you're saying, to think outside of the box, to stretch the idea. So sort of piggybacking off of that point, how important is it to really free yourself of restraints and to think as big as you can during this exercise?
It's very important. So when you say exercise, you're talking about the canvas.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's very important. Otherwise, you only going to have your ideas, and you want to get fresh ideas. And another important thing to bear in mind is that when you bring other people in to get their ideas, is don't argue with them. If it's your canvas, try to zip your lips and be the scribe. So they tell you what they think and you write it down. If you think they don't understand your project, maybe take a minute to try to explain it to them again, but do your best not to argue and interrupt, because you don't want to make the other people feel like you're too sensitive about your project, you're too precious about it, and that they don't want to say anything wrong. And what was the other point? Let me just see. I made a note.
Sure.
Also, if you argue with people, it's going to eat into the time that you have to get ideas from them. So you don't want to do that. You may think that's a crazy idea. Don't argue, don't discuss, just write it down. And when everyone's gone away, you've had a good night's rest, come back to the canvas that you generated with those people. Look at that crazy idea, and you may go, oh, wow, I see that's actually relevant to my project. I can use that idea. It's a good thing I didn't tell them to shut up. And it's a good thing that I did write it on the canvas, even though I thought it was crazy. So yeah.
Cool. So unfortunately, we're running a little bit out of time. So I just wanted to get one more question now. So during the DFMI Business Lab, us as the participants were given 2 minutes to present our projects using the business model canvas, right? So how does this time restraint help us sort of help the participant get used to the idea of pitching more efficiently and effectively to potential investors and stakeholders, such as like at film festivals? Or film markets, right?
Well, it helps you because it helps you to remember the different categories and to picture the canvas in your head, like I was doing when I was doing a canvas for my degree. And it also helps you because sometimes, as I said earlier, if you didn't get to meet a financier during the speed dating session and you bump into them in the elevator, and it's kind of like an elevator pitch, and you need to be able to pitch to them in the time it takes to get from one floor to the next floor. So you need to be able to do that in 2 minutes, go through the canvas, remember your key points, under pressure also. And that's why it's also important to practice your canvas before you go to a full market, so that you know that you're confident that you really do know the different categories and your bullet points under those categories. And you know it's your canvas, it's your project, it's your business. You do know those things. You just need to practice them so that you can say them under pressure.
Yeah. I mean, I remember during my time, the 2 minutes we had allocated to pitch, that was really tough at first. And it was just kept practicing and practicing. And I find myself in offices with clients having to pitch. And, all that work that we've done previously in terms of prep comes to help in the situation, So the business model has really helped me secure a bunch of clients. So
okay,
so
that's
much.
Great.
Yeah. So this has been such a fantastic session. I'm really grateful, like I said, for just being able to sit down with you for a few minutes to discuss this incredible tool, because I think the more and more people know about it, the more people who are able to use it, it really does transform things in terms of how we approach things, especially as creatives, because we're stuck in our worlds, but at the end of the day, this is a business, in terms of the industry, in terms of life, and this model really does help towards that. So thank you so much.
Well, it's great. Yeah, I'm glad that you're a convert. We're like-minded, because we see the potential of the business model canvas. Yeah, great. It's great to have met you, someone who's been impacted by the power of the business model canvas.
Yes, thank you so much, Tina.
Thank you, Moreetsi.
And thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you learned something new, or that you felt compelled to further interrogate your professional practice. Never miss an episode. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, or sign up to filmmart.africa for exclusive video content from this episode, where the African film industry unites.